Good evening. How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Saturday night, 10:09 p.m. That's California time here, Saturday, May 17th, 2025. Hope everyone's having a good weekend out there. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.5 earthquake across Alaska. A little bit of swarming going on here across the Aleutian Trench. Also some movement just off the Pacific Northwest there, it looks like, across the close to the Cascadia subduction zone. I want to show you guys here real quick the tremor map this evening. This is through the last 24 hours of recorded tremor along the Cascadia subduction zone. Just today, 700, almost 700 epicenters of tremor. That brings up our monthly total here to an ever-increasing amount of 6,627 epicenters, mainly across the area to the south here, along the southern segment of the Cascadia subduction zone. And in fact, this all data chart here looks as though we've surpassed the previous level back in the end of 2024 and is coming up to maybe a similar amount that was recorded back in the end of 2022. Now, the importance of the tremor activity occurring is that it's a sign that stress is building up there across the subduction zone of the Cascadia. Now, this is a simplified layout cross-section of the Cascadia, the Pacific Northwest. You got Washington cut out here of central Oregon, the middle part of Oregon, right? So the Cascadia subduction zone starts at Northern California and is all the way northward past the Vancouver Island ranges up here. Tremor activity. Okay, tremor is occurring below this zone. In fact, if you look here on this map, the tremor activity is never to the west and never to the east of this area. It's always positioned in this fashion, almost always. I don't recall the last time I've ever seen anything up towards the locked area. It just doesn't happen. We don't get tremor recorded there. So if you look at the position as the tremor counts there, and then look at the locked area, that sits just upstream here at a shallower level compared to the tremor, which occurs about 45 kilometers deep here. That locked zone sits offshore there where the subduction zone interface begins between the Juan de Fuca plate and the North American plate here. The tremor activity is a sign that the Juan de Fuca plate here is further being pushed underneath this area. And when that happens, we get these tremor counts and buildup of strain up there against the locked zone. This is locked as can be. So what's going on here is the North American plate is kind of folding a little bit and uplifting to accommodate the strain between the two plates here, between that interaction. But it's still pushing the Juan de Fuca plate underneath this area. So the tremor counts are going up. The strain is increasing out there across the locked area. Occasionally we'll see some deep earthquakes below the tremor activity, but it's been a little while since we've seen that. More concerning about the locked area that sits just upstream there from the tremor activity. And I tell you what, we've had quite a bit here in the last month. Tremor activity, obviously, you know, we could see the Cascadia rupture during high tremor counts, such as what we're seeing right now. Let's take a look here at the earthquake activity occurring offshore, where there's been a number of earthquakes here, it looks like. Northern California has been an area of interest because of the amount of earthquake activity happening out here in the last 7 days during the tremor events. We got one up here about 11 miles deep up from the tremor along the Cascadia subduction zone, probably around the locked area up there. Most of it has been south here along that triple point boundary. If you look today, though, a couple more earthquakes out along the Blanco fracture zone. That's going to be the strike slip boundary out here. And let's see, almost looks like this was, yeah, see, that's already showing. This three-pointer is a strike slip boundary, meaning that there should be further pressurization down here across the southern end. It looks as though that three-pointer a few hours later may have triggered some further movement down here across the Gorda Ridges. So this whole area is acting as a further strain, increasing the tremor that's happening underneath this area, increasing that stress out there across the Cascadia subduction zone. There's quite a few interesting quakes out here recently. And that is something we got to watch closely, because the Cascadia subduction zone doesn't always rupture in complete, full events, as far as a complete unzip from Northern California all the way up here to the Queen Charlotte Sound area. It can have these partial ruptures which occur at fairly common intervals in between major ruptures. And that's why I'm thinking here we may be getting close to seeing a partial rupture across the southern extent of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that can result in an 8.0 or probably about an 8.4 to 8.5 maximum magnitude earthquake here. And that in itself would be a decent earthquake that would probably produce a tsunami as well. Not as much as a full rupture would be, right? That'd be a 9-pointer, which obviously a lot more stronger than an 8-pointer. So I'm watching this closely here, folks. The tremor activity, and we've had tremor activity like this in the past. No big events, but one of these times it's very possible that could be some foresigns here, so to speak, of the big earthquake about ready to take place. So continue to watch this there across the southern end of the Cascadia. There is a little bit of tremor happening up north here. Let me bring that back up. Up around the Seattle area. Fairly decent amount of counts up there as well. I'm not going to count all those little dots, but there's definitely something going on up there as well towards the northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. It's been on the move here. If you look at the past month, it's filling in quite nicely across the entirety almost, except for areas up along this region underneath this area here, the extreme northern end. But as far as earthquake activity increasing, the only notable amount, or at least one here, is on the Seattle fault. That one's 15 miles deep, 1.7 earlier this evening. The Seattle fault here is an older fault, and it is capable of producing some large earthquakes. It's been quite a while since they've had a large event on that Seattle fault. It goes directly underneath the downtown the Seattle area. So that's starting to light up a little bit, along with the tremor activity that's occurring. So as that plate there pushes further down underneath this region, it can stir up these other faults within the vicinity. Bay Area of San Francisco, a couple smaller earthquakes out there today. Looks like some 2s out there around Santa Rosa. Nothing big. Clear Lake Volcanic Field, those are hydrothermal plants in full swing. A little bit of movement there on the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault. Let's see if we got anything above 2.5 out here. Still nothing. Southern California, it's been a little quiet. It seems as though most of the movement there is happening northward into Northern California along the Cascadia, but that could switch up here. One earthquake in the last hour, 2-pointer. Not a big earthquake, but it is off the San Andreas Fault, considerable amount. Nothing of any abnormal activity to note there across Southern California for now. It looks like any given day as far as earthquake activity goes. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up there on the map, but I do want to verify that, see what we got going on here. There were some thunderstorms that popped up there earlier. I did verify that late in the afternoon time period. And now this right here does look like earthquake activity. But I do not see it showing up on any of the nearby seismograph stations, so I'm not for sure what that is. They've had, a number of smaller earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. These are legit earthquakes. And previous to that as well, yesterday, seen a handful of earthquakes out here as well. But it looks as though the earthquake swarm is calming down a little bit. This reading right here that you're seeing on the majority of the seismograph stations there is not a localized earthquake. In fact, that's the earthquake that popped down there in the Chile area early this morning, a 6-pointer, super early this morning. That matches that time period for the movement that we're seeing right here about 3:30 local time, but mountain time 1 hour ahead, right? So that's 4:30. That matches that. But yeah, aside from that, not a whole lot of earthquake activity there across Yellowstone. Some up into Montana. Nevada down here been getting quite a few as well. Out in the oil fields of Texas, still rocking and rolling. Oklahoma as well. One little lonesome earthquake out in the New Madrid seismic zone from early this morning. Nothing big. Take a look here at the world view. Go ahead and pull up the earthquake 3D model here. Since that 6-pointer there this morning along the Peru-Chile Trench, most of the movement looks like it's shifted south. A little swarm going on there in the Chile area. Mexico area still seeing some movement. Someone mentioned here, and I do like to cover Canada when there's things happening up there. Let me show you guys here the Canada map real quick. There's a lot that goes on here across this area of the Cascadia subduction zone that does not get reported by the USGS, but there's really not a whole lot going on. There's some smaller quakes up here around the Queen Charlotte Sound area, but nothing of any major movement, and that covers the last month or so. Some older quakes on there potentially as well. But far as the general Canada earthquake activity out here, as far as any big quakes going on, really not seeing anything major going on. There are a couple earthquakes way up in the Yukon area, but nothing big happening for the most part. And the good thing about the Earthquakes Canada site is they list these earthquakes that are happening out around the Alberta area. These are not earthquakes, but they register as earthquakes. These are suspected industry-related event. In other words, oil and gas fields. That's what they call them when an earthquake happens out there. Similar to what goes on out in western Texas and any other areas there in the states. That's some earthquake activity there in the gas and oil fields. I'll definitely try to, like I say, I try to bring in Canada when there's more activity happening up there, but there's really not a whole lot, aside from general small quake activity happening. Most of the area up here is ways away from any major plate boundary, aside from areas up here, and it hasn't really been all that active out there across this area of the North American and the Pacific Plate. All right, let's back here to the earthquake 3D globe. Hawaii got a little swarm going on, it looks like. Bunch of 2s, even a 3-pointer out there. So let's go see what's going on here. See if anything else is changing. There's a little swarm stretching out towards the Loihai Seamount area. Let's go see what we got for the Kilauea volcano. As you know, we're entering into episode number 23, should it come up here soon. We just ended episode 22 on the 16th there yesterday at 3:29 Hawaii time. Deformation data will give us a good indicator of what's going on below the ground. And, well, there's the eruption that lasted for a short time. There's a pause. And this is going to be number 23, episode 23 in the eruption stage. It looks like it's going up. I don't see any major changes, anything happening below the ground. A lot of times these earthquakes that are happening underneath the area can affect the general magma flow in the region, but I don't see any major change. Just a little bit of earthquake activity, and this is fairly heavy duty in terms of weight. These are about 20 miles deep or so underneath this area. A lot of movement happens around the Pahala area. This movement happening offshore, just as deep. Could have something to do with the just the general weight of the Hawaii Islands here on the Pacific Plate. It's not only this area that's exposed above the ocean surface level, ocean level, I should say. But you can see all of this is the Hawaii Islands. Here's the oceanic floor. There's lots of built up land that's sitting now on top of that Pacific Plate, and it does add strain, a bending, so to speak, of the Pacific Plate, and we get these deeper earthquakes at times around the area. Let's see, definitely a lot of activity up in Alaska here, 4.9, a couple other 3s. The Kurokam Chatka got a 4.7 over there, it looks like, towards the Japan area. Nankai Trough remains quiet. Clustering going on here across that typical zone that we talk about every single day. Nothing new. They're always seeing earthquake activity out there. New Zealand, just off North Island coast, a little 4-pointer it looks like. Some threes down the line. Nothing big happening for now. Let's see. Oh, fairly active over here, looks like, across the Mediterranean and general area. Let's see what we got over here. There's 4.2 outside of Greece area, north of Athens. Some other movement, 2s and 3s. A couple other earthquakes out there. Looks like around the Turkey area. Really not seeing anything major going on. We can give a quick glance here at the Santorini volcano area around Greece. See if anything's changed there. The weekly count, about 159 earthquakes there. Really no increase and no decrease. The seismograph station out there looks pretty quiet for right now. The last earthquake, they're registering that as a 3.1 in New Zealand. But around the local area here around Santorini, it looks like a 2.4. There's a 3-pointer in there. Just staying fairly consistent with earthquake activity. No major change that I can see there on the map for now. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Looks like a new earthquake down here across the South Sandwich Trench, though. We did have this one earthquake down here. That is at the subduction zone of the South Sandwich Trench, 4.9, resulting a little bit later towards the northwest. All right, let's see what we got for space weather activity here. Getting a little bit quieter. Aurora activity not as amplified as what we had seen last night. Fairly minimal at best, though. Could see some unsettled conditions there up around the G1 class storming category over the next couple nights. Flaring activity, unfortunately, 4087 here is just, look at that, split up completely. Let's see the latest. Oh wow, this is, yeah, that's a shame. That was looking fairly nice here a few days back when it was produced that X flare and a couple M flares, and it just took a nosedive. Complete separation and degrading of that core. This is going to just disappear into nothingness pretty soon. Same with this area. Wow, there's really not a whole lot happening here on the sun, folks. A couple other regions that came up here recently are not looking all that impressive either. Goodness. All right. Well, that means our flare threat's going to be dropping off like a rock here soon. They're showing a 10% for X flare, but I'm sure this will be lower by morning once Kevin gets on here. 35% chance for an M flare. And as far as what's coming around the bend on the opposite side of the Earth face, I was going to say the dark side of the sun, right? That's not going to happen. Opposite Earth-facing side, far side of the sun. One sunspot here, it looks like. This is from the 17th. This is the here's the eastern limb over here. Here's that bigger area that's completely degraded, and a couple other smaller regions here on the Earth-facing side. So I don't see a whole lot over here that we're going to be that may come into view. You know, it just looks pretty quiet. There is one region back over here, center disk on the far side of the sun, but we got a number of days before that even makes its way over to the eastern limb. So looks like we're going to be entering into a little quiet period of solar flaring activity. Now there is that coronal hole number 48 here that is still lingering, shooting out some high-speed solar wind stream, mostly south of the Earth-Sun plane, but there is an occasional possibility of seeing a G1 class storm there from some of the high-speed solar wind stream, should it be in favor of hitting the Earth. That's a fairly massive area, and that will continue, like I said, for the next couple nights. Storm Prediction Center looks like slight risk for some severe weather out there for the remainder of the night. A little bit of tornado activity, wind, and some hail to knock on the roof while you're trying to sleep. Goodness, it's that type of, it's that time of year. It happens. You just got to be prepared. Tomorrow, day 2, an enhanced area out there. This is going to be for Sunday. Got a little bit of a decent tornado threat out there around Wichita, Kansas. Wind and some big-time hail threats. Got to stay weather aware out there. Looks like day 4, increasing confidence here of maybe a bigger severe weather outbreak as we head towards that day 4 period. That's going to be on Tuesday of this coming week. That includes Memphis, Jackson, Nashville. Just a heads up. Uncertain on what the potential hazards are, but could be obviously some tornado activity as well. But they're hinting at a 30% chance there for Tuesday, and that's a decent forecast. This far into the future, into the forecast area. All right, let's see here. Just taking a look at Southern California. Really nothing lighting up. Keep an eye on the Cascadia subduction zone. Looks like a number of stations went offline. Surprise, surprise. Hopefully they come back. If not, we'll reset them in the morning, but they should come back. Have a good night, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Please stay safe. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're out here if you're watching the video, and we'd appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe. We'll see you guys back out here for the Sunday morning update.